Hi everyone, welcome back to the Watch Insider. My name is Brian and thank you guys for logging on. We've got an awesome show tonight. I'm joined by Tim Masso. And we've got a lot of great picks here from the vault, as well as a clip from a recent video that we did just a few days ago. So this week we had two amazing interviews. Tim interviewed Roger Ruger from
Editor-in-Chief of Watch Time Magazine. We had a wonderful show, and I want to thank everyone who joined us live, because that was our best live chat in terms of numbers and participation since we inaugurated this set.
How many views?
So far, I think we're pushing toward about 5,000 views on that. But the most important thing was we had somewhere around 500 to 600 of you see the thing live, and that's what means the most, because that's me and 500 to 600 of my closest friends.
Yeah, so that was actually, as Tim said, the single highest viewer count that we've ever had on a single live show. So it's much appreciated, and we thank you guys for supporting the show. They're back. So we also had the privilege of interviewing Cuba Gooding Jr. just a few days ago for the premiere of his movie Louisiana Caviar, which we are going to show a quick clip of now. And we'd greatly appreciate if you guys, after this show, whenever you guys have some free time, please go to our YouTube channel and take a look at the full interview. So cue now.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us
Brad
tonight.
Bizzle, there he
I love
is.
that.
What's up, baby boy? It's almost like, I don't know, have you ever ridden a horse? Ever been horseback riding?
Not for a long time.
I shouldn't have set you up that way. When you get on the back of a horse, just the way you sit and you control him or her, they know if you know what you're doing. And the minute they lose trust and they pull the reins or they do anything like that, you're screwed. They can run off on you, they'll stop, they'll do little things that just not make you look good. But when you show them control, they just acquiesce and they kind of succumb to your will. That's what a good actor wants from his director. I can't tell you how many times the first AD would come into my trailer and go, okay, here's our shot list. What can we lose?
Yeah, what would Rod Tidwell have to say about Cuba Gooding, the director?
You know, he'd have a pocket watch with a chain on it. Is that what watch what he wear? Yeah, he'd have a chain on it. He'd be like, what time is it?
So I hope you guys enjoyed that sneak peek, and again, greatly appreciate if you guys watch the full interview and comment on what you think. We're hoping that as time goes on that we're going to have lots of great new content just like this that we're going to be able to put out onto the channel for you guys to view. So we want to have obviously amazing watch content, but other really cool special lifestyle content to go along with it for you guys to take a look at and enjoy.
Yeah, and guys, we have got the full scope of the watchmaking world on the table tonight. Everything from vintage divers that you can pick up for solidly under $3,000 to the Geneva Hallmark that, coincidentally, you can also take diving, and resins for good measure. So let's get started.
Yeah, so we're going to actually start with a quick wrist check and also a live poll on which watch you guys like more. So, Tim, why don't you start us off with a bang?
Okay, well, I think you guys know me. I'm going to hand model this. Wrist shot's not going to work from that angle. It's my Amvox 2 chronograph. Of course, if you know the Amvox 2, you know this is the chronograph without the pushers. Articulated case, vertical clutch, column wheel, 65-hour power reserve. I wouldn't exactly call it a racing machine for your wrist because Richard Mille has tarred and feathered that phrase, but it's definitely motorsports inspired, and if you have to fat finger a chronograph with gloves on, you'd rather do it with this than a Rolex Daytona. I'm just saying, the Daytona's the watch for after you've won the race. In the heat of battle, whether you're crew or a fan, you want this.
So tonight on the wrist, I have here, I will take it off here so Tim can do a little bit more of a close-up of the camera, a Jaeger-LeCoultre Reverso Tribute to 1931. So this was a watch that I was rocking last week, and as many of you guys know, I'm actually on the hunt for a Reverso watch, and I think I may have landed on this one. So, as I said, this is the Tribute to 1931. What's special about this watch is this was an edition made in 2011 and 2012. In 2011, they came out with a 100-piece limited edition that was differentiated by the, I'd call it, more produced watch in that it has syringe hands. And this watch was made only for the Jaeger-LeCoultre boutique, and then it did so well as a boutique only that they did another edition in 2012 of 100 pieces. So this watch is from the 2012 edition, and how you know that is if you turn over the watch on the underside of the strap, on the Fajliana strap, you see the 2012, it's dated there. which is the year of the edition that this one was. So it's a great watch. I like how unique it is and how you really don't see too many of them. It fits the wrist great. It's slim. The only thing that I'm starting, that I'm trying to get over is I've never owned a rectangular watch. So I'm really coming to grips with how it looks on the wrist. Tim has really gotten me sort of, past that point of no return that I have to have the watch. And then the second is that it's manual wind. I tend to avoid manual wind watches simply because I forget to wind them. So I did have to go back today and rewind and reset the watch. But I've been loving wearing it. It's super comfortable. And I highly recommend to a Reverso to anybody that's been thinking about one.
Couple of things, guys. First of all, I love this Comparo because no matter what, JLC wins, but also because Brian really did go out of the way to find an interesting piece. Tribute to 1931, but the U.S. Boutique Special Edition. This was the beginning of JLC's infatuation with Fagliano straps, shell cord, and actually a horse leather
Is
made
the
by...
G silent?
Yes.
G is silent, okay.
And, of course, made by the August manufacturer in Argentina, best known for their polo boots to the likes of British royalty and allegedly Tommy Lee Jones. Their straps are made at a relative trickle pace, so if you order one, you usually have to wait a year. Other features that were unique to this model included the special syringe-style hands and the exaggerated patina-style coloration of that ecru-colored Super Luminova. But I have to say the most unexpected feature of this watch is that it glows like a torch at night. This lume is for real. And like I said, no matter who wins, JLC wins, so I'm a happy camper.
I mean, you're obviously going to win. I mean, it's like you're the fan favorite here. It's like an Eagles home game with you being the Eagles.
No, it's totally a watch battle. Guys might be more into the Reverso than the Amvox. That's an... Oh.
There we go. Tim's watch, 61% of
Tim
the
in green, I love it.
Tim in green, okay.
All right, guys, keep it coming. We're going to keep throwing that up all show long. All right.
What should we get started with?
Well, since we went green, let's go greener.
Beautiful.
Okay.
So, to get us started for the night, we have a Oris Diver 65 watch. You've got here a green dial, almost a brown. It's not quite a calf skin. What material would you say that is on the strap?
This strap is kind of a rusticated, minimally treated. It is a calfskin, but the way I describe it is it's almost the patina of age without the age. It is incredibly supple. You can see it's sheer cut with the layers folded over. This is about as silky and supple as I imagine a catcher's mitt would be after 20 major league seasons. So just before hanging it up, a catcher might get a taste of something this silky and supple, but the bottom line is this is ready for the first owner, not the last. The wonderful thing about this watch is that it's perfectly balanced. The slim profile of the case preserves the aesthetic of the vintage reference from 1965, and though it is a sapphire, not a thermoplastic, so it doesn't have the scratch-prone tendencies of plexiglass, you get the same off-axis distortion that you get in a mid-century plexiglass-style bubble crystal. Also endearing and yet functional, the ecru-style Luminova. We talked about the Reverso having a sort of simulated patina. Well, what you see on the Reverso you see here, but it's not cloyingly dark. So it's got just a little bit of vintage color, more than anything else, to set itself off against the actual matching calibration of the seconds and minutes track outboard and really pop against the British Racing Green gloss background. This is what I call a what-if watch. There never existed a green dial watch exactly like this in the Oris catalog in 65, but darned if it doesn't look good in the year 2018.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, you've got a retro 1960s watch here at a great price point. The watch is rich, highly wearable. My only, again, two tweaks that I would have on the watch for personal wear is it sits at a 42 millimeter, which is a little bit big on my wrist. I would have loved to have seen a watch like this in a 38, even a 38 is going to be a little bit small. Call it a 40 millimeter size. Actually happens to fit you incredibly well.
I got to say, don't give up on it just because it's a 42. The bottom line is that this watch has short cropped lugs. Yeah, that's true. My wrist is tiny. By the way, guys, my Amvox is 44. Anything's possible. But you can see that this sits nice, centered, square, secure on my wrist. So don't be put off by the 42 or the strong lugs, which sometimes discourage those who are narrow across the forearm. This watch has a planted stance. It's comfortable. It fits well on a small wrist. Oris, like so many else, understanding that you can build a bigger watch, not a bigger client. And by the way, guys, it's a true diver. This one can actually get wet and wild, unlike those vintage timepieces.
Yeah, it really does look perfect on your wrist. And then the only other quirk that I have is that it's a DLC-coded bezel. So I do think that, if you are wearing it for sport and that does scratch, it might be a nuisance to some of you guys that, prefer your watches looking sharp. I just don't know how it would look if it was ceramic.
I would say this. If you want ceramic, Oris has got solutions for you.
It does.
With the Aquas
Could maybe
and the
do
Pro
aluminum.
Drive. You know, I think it's okay at this price point because, let's face it, there's nothing more frustrating when you buy a $2,000 watch than having to pay for a $400 service bezel because you cracked a ceramic insert. I actually think it makes sense at this price to not burden the owner with a total replacement if he gets a scratch or a graving in the bezel.
And we have a quick question from the chat. Robert Dixon, Tim, what's the movement in the Oris?
Okay, it is a Sellita SW220. Now, the nice thing about Oris is they do lay hands on all of the movements they put in their watches. So though it is a Sellita 220, which is basically a Sellita iteration of the ETA 2824, Oris has watchmakers who perform a regulation, a quality control, and a final examination of the assembled watch complete with timing. So I always say that you want to look at the total value equation with a watch, not just whether it's an in-house caliber. Just like IWC back in the day with ETA calibers, Oris is going to lay hands on that movement and meaningfully add value, which is why I'm okay with the customer caliber, because is there anyone who does not like vintage watches? Well, guess what? Most of them didn't have manufacturer movements. The watch is true to history in that sense as well.
So, picked up another watch which happens to be one of my favorites on the table, and I think it's a watch, honestly, that gets a lot of undeserved flack, and I just think that they're great timepieces. And I actually wore one on a prior episode, which is the, I'll let you show it off here. So it's the 42mm Classic Fusion complete calendar from Hublot. So with a skeletonized dial. So you've got a moon phase here, complete calendar at 42mm in size on their gummy crack strap. The watch is absolutely gorgeous. It fits incredibly well. It comes in at a great price point. I want to say this one is titanium, is that correct?
That's correct. And the nice thing about this Aero Moon is that you get the best advantage of the Aero dial in that it's not just skeletonized, it's completely open thanks to the double sapphire. The advantage of the Aero dial is that it lets you see the movement without taking the watch off the wrist. Yes, it's got a display case back, but again, when you've got a Sellita base, and this is the caliber 1131 in there, it's a combination of the Hublot modular construction on the Sellita base. There's really nothing to see here. There's everything to see on the dial side. The mechanism is gorgeous, and because there's a sapphire laid beneath the sapphire, the first one on top to cover the dial, the second one serving as the mounting point for the moon phase, the apertures, and the calibrations outboard diamond polished. This is a sensational watch. It satisfies two criteria that are mandatory for me. One, it looks fantastic on the wrist, because if the watch doesn't look good, there's no cerebral backstory that I can tell you to make you like it. And two, it brings the movement to the fore. This is a rare Hublot that's all about machinery, and gloriously so. Plus, titanium case, moderate wearable size. I think 40 to 42 is perfect for Hublot. It's the kind of thing that, you know, frankly, I think has expanded their clientele just as much as the Classic Fusion line itself, by the way, now rivaling the Big Bang as their most popular family. And frankly, can't you see why? A little bit of elegance from the big and bold Materials Fusion people.
And one of the other things that I really do like about the watch, you know, it is the price point. I mean, at $16,100, I think for a high-end sports watch from a manufacturer like this, it really does come in at a good price. And generally, I'm not the biggest proponent of a complete calendar. I think that in this day and age, brands should at a minimum be giving you an annual calendar for what things cost. But I think that keeping it at $16,100 at this price point and giving you a complete calendar watch in this package, I think, you know, they did it extremely well.
Yeah, so we've got questions coming in. By the way, guys, questions and comments. Why do a live show if you don't have interaction? In the live chat box, please, if you have some sort of computer, either a laptop or a desktop, join us live. Shannon from Germany saying, it does look neat. Robert Dixon from Scotland saying, I would struggle to see the time. True. It's a watch that is probably for those who prefer to spend a little bit more time with your watch. If you like to focus in, appreciate the details, it's the kind of watch that I would say is less about telling the time and more about good times. Seeing the movement is what Jean-Claude Biver often advocates with the watch. He says you want to bring the machine from the inside out. That's why Hublot early on with the Aero dials did skeletonization, and why you're seeing that more across Tag Heuer and Zenith lines that JCB has influenced. So guys, I can see coming through.
And this happens to be a little bit more skeletonized than a lot of the other Aero pieces. They maybe could have added, you know, luminescence to the hands and indices, might have made it a little bit easier to read.
What I think when I see this is that they're trying to achieve the effect of jewels, basically. The faceting, the glimmer, the glint, and the hard geometries. This is all about the hard edges of wheels, of indices, of levers and hands. No one piece except for the moon phase stands out, which is why this is the Aero Moon. The moon phase is the one piece that is emphasized, and if you look carefully, you'll see there's yet another sapphire at 6 o'clock on the dial covering the double moons, crescent style, translucent so that you can see both of them even while you can clearly discern the current moon phase. This is the Aero Moon. Classic Fusion Aero Moon came out in 2015. It's all about the romance of the moon phase. What else is necessary? Strictly speaking, nothing. That's why everything is de-emphasized to bring the moon phase to the fore.
Yeah, so amazing watch. And as Tim said, guys, please feel free. You can ask any questions about really anything.
Yeah,
it doesn't really have to be about the watches on the table. Just, anything that you guys think that you might want us to answer.
This is Reddit Ask Me Anything without the trolls and with live responses.
We have a couple trolls every blue moon. It's
okay, that's true. So I can see right here we have other comments coming through. D. Cheetah saying, I'm not a fan of Hublot, but why do I like this watch? You know why? Because Hublot's generally not about the movement. This one is. We know we've got some movement guys out there. By the way, ongoing poll, which do you prefer, Tim's Amvox 2 or Brian's?
I thought they were just putting that up to put it on my face. I didn't realize that it was ongoing.
Well, I mean, I can do my victory lap and all, but we're not done yet. I might be able to do 2 victory laps. Keep it coming, guys.
The swag gets sent out, guys, just, when my watch tends to tweak out in front of Tim. So I just want everybody to realize that that's watching the show.
So Brian is still trying to find a reverso. Actually, he's trying to find a non-round watch that he really likes. He's leaning reverso, so I'm trying to move him into a tribute to 1931. We'll see. We'll see.
So next watch on the table is an absolutely beautiful piece. So, we try and pick pieces that you guys, won't always get to see or don't readily have the chance to see that are from the vault. These watches are available for sale on our pre-owned, on our pre-owned site. So this right here is an FP Journe Octa Automatic in rose gold with the red gold movement. What's so special about this watch is that when Tim pans back to the dial, you've got here the mother of pearl inlay around the track. This particular watch happens to be boutique only. And what I find so fascinating about the watch is not only is it boutique only, but it's 38 millimeters. And as many of you guys are watching the show know, 38 millimeter was phased out by FP Journe a few years ago. You can only now purchase a 40 or 42 millimeter FP Journe. So not only was this watch boutique only, but it was completely in the process of being phased out when they were making it in 38. So this watch here, it was probably only produced in less than 5 examples for the world ever. And the reason why they stopped making 38s was, honestly, people just stopped asking for them. Now, it's all that people want are the older 38 millimeter pieces.
Yeah, a couple of details, just to fill in the backstory that Brian provided. 38 millimeter FP Journe is like manual transmission Ferrari. When they were new, no one wanted them. Everyone went for the F1 because, frankly, most people who buy new Ferraris don't know how to drive a stick. So people went for the automatic transmission. Here's the thing. Today, if you have a 599, a 575 with a 6-speed, even a 612 Scaglietti manual, you can practically name your price. And it's the same thing with 38 millimeter Journe. The second they stopped making them due to the low take rate, every collector wanted 38 millimeter Journe. So I guess it's the forbidden fruit, but there's a lot more to love here than the notion of scarcity. There's beauty, there's depth, there's the iridescent glow of that Nacla or mother of pearl outer dial. The thing is, FP Journe, having sold this series since 2012, has only ever made the dial in-house. It's a combination of cutting, transfer printing, and of course that center dial, beautifully executed with a handsome clou de Paris pattern, gives it the appearance of tonal contrast, but also depth as your eyes are drawn into the double-digit date with its flush discs, and then the infinite depth of that iridescent mother of pearl. It has no beginning, middle, or end. It captures the imagination and it never lets go. Also a handsome combination of tones with the mother of pearl, the blue printing, and the red gold case. This is a handsome watch on both sides. The only problem is when it's on your wrist, you can't wear it upside down.
We're going to need you to repeat all of that. I missed about 25% of that.
It's okay, I bill by the hour. We can do that.
But no, so this is one of those watches. I know that you guys in the chat are sort of saying that it seems a bit feminine, but this particular watch is absolutely stunning. And I think that it's the kind of watch that you really need to have in your hand and to see in person to really, truly appreciate. Because, we've had a similar reaction from a lot of gentlemen that we've sold the watch to. And once they get it in their hand and they get the chance to look at it, it's one of those watches that they can just never take off. I was actually thinking how cool this watch would be with a Carolina blue strap.
You know, that would be sharp.
Be awesome, right?
I would even think if you had a heavy double stitch with a contrasting blue, it would really be it would be super sharp and match the dial.
And you know, at 38 millimeter, it's literally the perfect size, in my opinion, for an FP Journe. The watch is stunning. I think that it's the kind of watch that you can wear a little bit more dressed up or a little bit more casually, and it's definitely a showstopper, a watch that you guys will wear that, you know, if somebody sees it on your wrist, they're going to ask you what the hell that is.
And I would also say this right here, Marco. Oh boy, I can't even repeat that, but I'm honored. Guys, keep the comments coming. I see Edward Ledden from
Tim
Sweden.
uses his mouth better than a...
You can't repeat that. First of all, the decimal's in the wrong place. Second, I get the picture. I have a vivid imagination. So Edward Ledden from Sweden saying, my favorite Reverso is the Grand GMT. Of course, the GMT Reversos are a great modern addition to the catalog because in the modern era, no one wears this to play polo. People wear this because it's beautiful. To utilize the case back, now Brian's got a baby on the way, so maybe he's going to have this one engraved to celebrate the occasion. But
so if you guys see me run off the set, you know why.
Exactly. He's got an excuse. I can take over solo. I'm overqualified. But the bottom line is today, to have two sides to a watch with the Reverso, that's an opportunity to implement a second complication. So as Edward is commenting, you can put a GMT function on the opposite side of the watch. And it makes sense. That's how the Reverso continues to be relevant despite being a prodigious relic. I absolutely love that anachronism, by the way. All right, more comments coming through. I can see right here, Simon Holt, good Lord, that Journe dial is fabulous. Also, Jevin Chia saying, hi, what do you think about AP's 2017 titanium novelty? Do you mean the 2018 novelty, the new titanium and platinum Royal Oak Ultra Thin? Because, quite honestly, that's a monster.
It's beautiful.
That's an awesome watch. I've worn it. I can't describe it. You're going to have to watch my video available on this channel.
I mean, it's an amazing watch. I wonder what the combination would look like if it was actually reversed.
You mean if it were platinum with titanium bezel?
Yeah.
Well, here's
the thing. It'd be
the
very
thing.
interesting combination. It'd be a lot heavier.
They
It'd be an interesting
polished the
combination.
platinum. They polished the
like
platinum.
A super high polish.
So it would look super bling
You
if
breathe
the whole
on that
thing were
thing,
platinum.
it is scratched.
That's a fact. And if you've ever seen the full platinum offshore on the bracelet, by the way, I pulled a muscle. I'll be billing the company for my legal expenses. But I cannot say what the metalwork on every Audemars Piguet is like in person. You just have to see it. Seeing it on titanium, seeing it on platinum, seeing it on an offshore, seeing it on an ultra thin. It's the kind of thing where you realize why, even on something like the Royal Oak chronograph, where it's not an in-house caliber, what you're paying for is what you can see and what you can feel. It's an incredibly sensuous kind of craftsmanship because it's always touching the skin in any metal. Although, given the choice, yeah, platinum. Okay. Tim, will you be going to Basel? This year I will not be going to Basel. We're actually going to do a War Room style live update format where we're going to try to be first with every new breaking novelty with pictures, background information, pricing, availability, and analysis. So I'm hoping that we can get the one-up on the conventional publications so I don't have to wait in line to be the fifth guy to see the new Hublot at Basel. You can see it here first.
Exactly. And you know what we want to do a lot more in these shows obviously is not just make it about the watches that are coming out, but also give you guys the ability to purchase the watches that are coming out because, you know, as many of you know, we're an authorized dealer for all these brands and we want to see if we can figure out what our allocations are, you know, from the show, get it over here, and start getting people early access to SIHH and Basel releases.
High and Rising saying, Tim, I drive a 2013 Dodge Dart GT with a stick. I can't get a Charger with a stick to replace it. I wish there were a decent American sedan with decent horsepower and torque and a manual. Why don't you get the Challenger SRT on the same platform as the Charger with the 6-speed? That seems like the answer. Or Generation 2 Cadillac CTS-V and be done with it. And budget money for tires, especially the rear. All right, so I can see right here, we have Matt Forster saying he's a fan of the Scuba Tech from Bucherer. We don't have one on the table. I do believe we have one in inventory. That's one of the most underrated chronometer-grade diving watches with the best combination of dial, case, and bracelet.
And I think you're going to be seeing a lot more coming from Carl F. Bucherer. I mean, I don't know if it's fully... we've talked about on the show, actually, how Bucherer purchased Torno.
Yes.
And... I think that you're going to see a lot more coming out of Carl F. Bucherer, especially here in the United States, as, they organically grow that presence at probably Tourneau locations.
I will also say this.
That has to be part of the plan.
Yeah, I mean, 28 Tourneau locations in the U.S. Bucher goes from having no presence to having almost as big a presence as they have in Europe, where they have 33 dedicated locations. Bucher is a billion-dollar-plus business that happens to own a very tiny watch brand based out of Lucerne. Expect to see that very tiny watch brand grow in the next 2 years. And that's a good thing. I like the brand. Okay.
So I just picked up another watch from the table.
Smoking.
This one I think everybody will be excited to see. So here we have the Ressence Type 1 in blue. So, you know, it's not often that I think that we see watches that, you know, really blow you away, that are out of the box, completely different than anything that you've seen before. And, you know, it's really hard now to be creative, to really, honestly, show something new at SIHH or a Basel that no one has ever seen before. And that's what Ressence did years ago with the Type 1. And Tim's going to tell you a little bit more about this watch.
Hell yeah, for a company that's been around since 2010, my goodness, have these guys made an impact. They're considered to be chic, avant-garde, and yet there is classical watchmaking inside, as all of these are built on an ETA 2824 base, so they're rock-solid automatics. What ups the parts count to well over 300 is the ROCS, the Ressence Orbital Convex System, that creates the effect you're seeing here. Now, everything moves. And I mean everything moves with a set of planetary gears that manipulate the dial. Now the watch is that you probably know best is the Type 3 with an oil-filled dial. This is actually the Type 1N for night blue. It's 42 millimeters in grade 5 titanium, super light on the wrist. It's almost like a more extreme version of a wire lug radiomir. God bless. When you see it in profile, it's all about the case, as it's almost a lugless watch. For ergonomic purposes, you can wear this 42 millimeter watch on a wrist as small as 13 centimeters in circumference, which is teensy tiny. Also, look at the way Ressence plays with color. The use of metallic finishes on this dial is as dynamic as the complication itself. And when you get right down to it, there's not a whole lot going on here visually. The romance is in the way it moves, not necessarily what it does, because it just tells time.
So the watch is incredibly interesting. I do think that it's a conversation piece on the wrist. You know, the mechanism on the back both winds and sets the watch, which Tim will give you a quick show of. And you know what? I think that this is the kind of watch that really can make its home in any sort of collection. You know, it's got the watchmaking guts to it that, you know, that a watch enthusiast would want. And then at the same time, it's, you know, it's interesting enough to stand out and not blend in with the rest of the crowd.
So I should also mention, let's quickly, God bless, man.
Woo! Coughing.
Maybe someone could get Brian some refreshments. We need a water budget here, or better yet, we need a water sponsor. Come on. Dasani, I want to say brought to you by Dasani. This is Watchbox Studios, brought to you by Dasani. How good does that sound? Come on, guys. Please, Coke, make that happen.
VG or Voss organization.
Okay, fairly enough. Well, how about, let's go whole hog. Avion, send me some of that creamy stuff right now. First, let me show you how this dial works. Okay, so you're looking at a watch that uses a planetary system for running hours, minutes, and seconds. So here's your hours, here's your constant seconds, here's your minutes, which is displayed radially, and then here's a quirky little day indicator. You can see the 2 days of the weekend in orange, and this is a watch that tells you very little that you don't already know about the time of day in a fashion that is absolutely dazzling. It's not a tourbillon, it's not a minute repeater, not a perpetual calendar, it's not a chronograph of any kind, and it only has the smallest and most discreet of constant motion. And yet, again, this company around since 2010, a hybrid of Belgian ingenuity and Swiss watchmaking precision, has a monster cult following and absolutely no dogmas or pretense. It's not a snob's brand, and I love that. Everything from online retail to unusual use of colors to, hey, putting liquid in the watch for a change. These guys are adventurous, and they're also friendly and fun folks who I happen to know, by first-hand account, ride their bikes to work.
Tim asks and ye shall receive. This was great.
Boom! How about that? We got elves in here. All right, let's go to the chat box and see what's going on.
So we've got a quick question here that I thought was 50K budget. Where is the question? From Horology Blog. Guys, under 50K, what would you get from an independent? I'll let you go first.
Okay, under $50,000 from an independent, you got to make one choice. Do you want to try to find something pre-owned for under 50 grand, or do you want to buy a new watch?
I mean, I couldn't agree more. JBO Surf, under 50K, Journe or Laurent Ferrier. I was literally going to say exactly. It's going to be one of those two. Me, personally, I'm probably going with a Journe, but we just picked up LF, and their new annual calendar, or his new annual calendar, is absolutely beautiful. It's going to be priced new a little bit more than that 50K point. I want to say it's around 58,000 if I remember correctly. But you know, the watch is awesome. They're going to be making. I mean, he only makes like 110 watches per year, so I don't really know even how many of the annuals he can make. But the watch is beautiful, so I mean, I definitely think I would pick from one of those two brands.
I think I'm going to piss everyone off and say HYT H0. I'm going to get it in black and green, boom. And with the money I save on my $50,000, I'm going to use the spare chunk of change to pick up a Giuliano Mazzulli, and I'm going to pick up a Manometro stainless steel with a green dial because it's beautiful objectively, and I can identify with a guy who went from basically being a typesetter at the tail end of the paper office era to being a watch designer.
We actually used to be the U.S. distributor for Giuliano Mazzulli.
They're monstrously great pre-owned watches, I gotta say. So yeah, so I'd buy the HYT H0 for under 50 grand and use my change for that.
That he came out with, did they ever get that to work? You know which one? The Contigieri.
Yes, the Contigieri. The Contigieri works, but I also love the fact that here's a guy who made a marble case. Bold, yeah. Probably disaster prone. Probably, but again, just an Italian style sensibility, as quirky as this is Italia and as timeless in its details. Also, comments coming through. Lots of folks into the car theme tonight. JBO Surf, Edward, Porsche. That's the no wrong answer. But I also had a question. If Resence were paired with an automaker, if they were to do auto co-branding, what would it be? Okay, I'm going to say that if Resence were to co-brand with an automaker, it would be Pano's Auto Developments of Brazelton, Georgia, because those guys are crazy. They did the first hybrid electric race car in the late 90s when you couldn't even buy a hybrid electric road car. People said they were crazy. A decade later, that became the only way to win the 24 Hours of Le Mans. They put cars together with glue. I mean, they did crazy things. They're a small, non-dogmatic independent that will make custom stuff for you, and they're friendly while doing so.
What about like a Fisker?
Well, I don't want to compare a brand I like with a brand that's disastrous, so I wouldn't do that to Resence. I would say, I don't even know. Take something that exploded in pyrotechnic fashion and bombed out in dramatic, horrendous style. That could co-brand with Fisker. A famous flameout, there's your Fisker co-branding. Both great buys pre-owned, I'm sure.
It's like, what brand do we not carry that I could say? Frank Mueller.
I mean, I don't even, I would say maybe Martin Braun, which collapsed, which was excessively, you know, dependent on weird bespoke complication modules that are now unserviceable on the pre-owned market because Frank Mueller bought them up and doesn't provide parts support for them. So yeah, independent brand, disappeared under financial duress.
But coming back.
Too complicated to service,
but coming
and
back.
Cheap pre-owned.
But I mean, we've talked about, you know, the rise of Frank Mueller again, how I think it's coming.
Frank Mueller, yes, but not Martin Braun. No. Martin Braun is still making watches, but not under the Martin Braun name. Those, once again, you're going to have to find one hell of an independent watchmaker to make the parts. Hey, Fisker fans, I've got the watch for you.
Anyways, what watch should we pick next? We got here. So this is a fun piece I feel like you guys are going to absolutely love. So here we've got the tribute to the Mark 11 IWC watch. So this watch came out as a retro tribute example to the Mark 11, and it is absolutely awesome. You have here the luminescent hands and indices. What's the name for that hand?
That particular hand, that's just a baton hand.
Is it just a baton hand?
Yeah. I mean, it's basically a big, visible, heavily loomed bit designed to work and nothing more. Instrument style, like the Big Pilot, but a little bit more wearable. It's from the same era, but it represents a different era of military supply, from the Luftwaffe to the RAF, and even the Royal Australians. That was the IWC Mark 11 from 1948 on. And unlike Martin Braun, they continued to supply service and parts for these watches into the 1980s. Now, this piece right here was a limited edition. It's the tribute to 1948, so technically 1,948 individual examples. Because IWC doesn't want anyone to get an unlucky number, the case is inscribed 1 out of 1,948. This is 40 millimeters. The original was 35.
And this is the Mark 18 case. And
Yes.
what I think is also really nice about this particular example of the watch is that the Mark 18 was removed from the dial, which I think does make the dial seem less cluttered.
Yes. The original watch would have been powered by a IWC, I want to say caliber 89 manual wind, and it would have been 35 millimeters in diameter, so it would have been both delicate and petite. This is a great watch if you want something that's durable and contemporary with vintage style, but doesn't have to deal with the fragility and mini-me sizing of an original watch. Make no mistake, most people would choose to have the vintage watch in their collection, but if you've really got to put it through the mill on the wrist, there is something to be said about having a watch that's under warranty and built with modern standards of fit, finish, anti-magnetism, sapphire, crystal, automatic winding, which the original didn't have, and hell, for daily use, a date.
And one other fine detail that I do want to show is on the underside here of the strap. So it's got that nylon top, but it does have like a fine leather underneath. So it really gives that comfort underneath with that sort of rugged look on top. And it's definitely the kind of watch that I think that, guys that have this watch are going to be alternating between straps and putting different things on.
Yeah. So again, this is one of the best NATO-style straps you'll encounter. Just like Omega has gone above and beyond with its own factory NATO-style straps, right up into using metal strap minders. Present here, by the way, you can see this one features a leather underlay for souplesse against the skin, so it's not going to chafe you. And as you can see, it features a commemorative style case back, mentioning that this is the Mark 11 Tribute and 1 out of 1,948. Again, watches are all about the details. At the luxury level, this one delivers for not a lot of money.
Yeah, so, awesome watch. I think they were predominantly boutique only.
Yeah, and for those of you keeping score, I want to say this is the 3270-07. Really cool watch. By the way, guys, I'm dying over this NATO strap. Take a quick look. You've got gussets to prevent gouging of the pinholes on this strap. You've actually got gussets to prevent gouging, a leather underlay, and metal strap minders. Yeah, trust me, pilots in the RAF never had it this good.
This is awesome, actually.
Can we top that?
Let me see this.
I don't know if we can top it, but we can rival it.
We're gonna try. So I think that this is a sleeper piece too that we're about to show. For some reason, I just feel like NATO's never fit my wrist the right way, though.
NATO's don't fit anyone's
is that
wrist.
just how it's supposed to look?
They're big and chunky. They're designed to be worn over suits, and I mean flight suits, not business suits.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's just supposed to how it's look. Yeah. So for our final watch of the show tonight, we have a Roger Dubuis Easy Diver. And what's so special about this watch is this is one of the older Easy Divers, back during the heyday of Roger Dubuis. So this particular watch comes with the complete set, the handwritten warranty card, the full kit and caboodle. You've got here a bright gold dial. You've got here an integrated strap that's got a carbon fiber piece up near the case. You've got here a rotating bezel. You've got it looks like a handmade deployment buckle. You've got the Geneva seal movement on the inside there in a diving watch. And just the finishing of this watch with the case is absolutely magnificent.
Now, I'll say a couple of things about this watch. First of all, note the text inscribed in the case back. Just for Friends, and yes, they made 888 of them. Just for Friends is there because Carlos Diaz was the founding partner of Dubuis alongside the man himself, Roger Dubuis. So he was the designer behind the best-known references. And the design was polarizing. You can see in this watch the form of the original Sympathy line, one of their original two case shapes, but it's just for Friends because they weren't afraid to make love-hate watches. Now, the styling was bold, avant-garde. It was very much of the 2000s. Keep in mind that this was part of the original sport utility watch line that came out in 2004, initially with customer calibers finished to Geneva seal standards. Here you can see this is actually the RD14. This is an in-house caliber from 2000. Let me see if I can get the light to catch that. From 2001
on the lugs right there.
It's monstrous. From 2001 to 2004, Dubuis put a ton of money into becoming a true manufacturer, right up to and including making their own escapements, balances, and hairsprings, and the fruits of that labor are here. Now, this is a 300-meter water-resistant watch with a Geneva seal caliber, bringing Geneva hallmark finish into the realm of the oversized sports watch. A contradiction in terms? Maybe a bit, but the bottom line is these are now becoming collectible watches because people are realizing how objectively rare Dubuis from the 2000s and 90s are. And I have to say, that is a spectacular sunburst bronze dial with guilloche, and it's even possible that this was originally part of the, I want to say early on, Cadronier was a joint partnership that might have used Dubuis dials.
Yeah, I mean, I think that this watch is absolutely gorgeous, and you know, I know that Roger Dubuis gets a lot of flack, but number one, to do this when he did it was an absolute, was crazy. I mean, he came out with this watch, and it was like kapow in your face. Not only that, but in an era where it's so difficult to come out with different cases that catch on, I really think the Sympathy stands on its own as something completely unique and different. And especially now, when honestly, it's pretty much just about Royal Oak, Rolex, and Nautilus. You know, it's nice to see a sports watch with a completely different look and case that's got, in my opinion, a rich presence and feel.
Yeah, and the other thing is, Carlos Diaz was doing the style back then. By 2004, Dubuis himself had left the business, but by 2008, Richemont had bought the business. So there was a relatively narrow window of about 4 to 5 years when these watches were being sold by Dubuis as an independent manufacturer. And the crazy thing is, it actually wears decently on a small wrist. If you like the look of a 44mm Royal Oak offshore, but you want to pay like 1/3 the money for a Geneva Hallmark sports watch with the same technical capability, precision, water resistance, toughness, wrist presence, and stance, this is a great option. So it's a watch, yes, that was styled to be just for friends and admirers, but you might be among them and you might not know it. Handsome option, unconventional design, unconventional brand.
Yeah. What are we at on the poll, guys, so far? Am I ahead? Bump it a bomb. Can we get that back up?
Okay. Right here, Hellbop saying Le Monégasque is the only Roger Dubuis for me. Yeah, the Monégasque is my favorite among the current collections. Also, I can see Edward Ledden saying Roger Dubuis better than Richard Mille. Sam W124, clearly a Mercedes-Benz fan, old school. Tim, what do you think is the lightest material a rotor can be made of that allows for efficient winding? Well, let's distinguish between the rotor and the mass. You want the rotor to be super light. You want the mass to be super dense. So I've actually seen a split, and JLC has used it, where the rotor has been carbon fiber. I'm talking to you, Amvox 3 Tourbillon GMT. The rotor is carbon fiber, and the mass is platinum iridium, which is actually the densest material you will find on a winding mass, along with the lightest material you will find to build the rotor. Okay, and I can see right here, JBO Surf, can we get a Resonance wrist shot? Yeah, you can. Okay. Remember, the Resonance is all case. It has effectively no lugs. The lugs are wire loops and they disappear. 42mm, you're looking at grade 5 titanium. Not just a compact watch, but one that truly wears light. You can also see the profile on the wrist is relatively low. I could absolutely slide this underneath my cuff. This is an all-arounder. You will have to answer questions. When you're wearing this watch, it's like driving a Viper. Even people who don't know what it is are going to pull out phones and start taking pictures, as well as asking you copious questions. The advantage with the watch is that you don't have to honor any requests for a ride.
So what do we think? Recount now? Do we do a recount? I'm taking some advice from the chat. I think they're saying that.
Recount. What is this? Florida? We moved from Miami. We're in Philly now. Okay, let's throw up the poll. What do you guys have? Tim Zamvox or?
I don't even think he can be redone.
I think it's a rolling total. I think it's ongoing as long as they... Okay, so there we go. I win. Boom. That's okay. He's got a baby on the way. He's got the big prize. His family expands. I only have more watches as time progresses. So, Fluffy Kitten, Tim is the winner. That's a fact. I win this round. I win this round. He's going to show up with Paddock next time.
Next time it's going to be crazy.
Yeah.
Absolutely crazy.
It's going to be like a 5016R or something. Yeah. Shannon.
By the way, you'll still win. I mean, it's crazy. you could have no watch on your wrist and you would win.
Man, how come I couldn't win any elections for student government in high school? I wasn't cool back then. Where were you guys then? But anyway, so Shannon from Germany saying, I totally dig that blue. And Germans know blue dials. I'm speaking to you, Nomos. So that's high honors for Resonance.
The Nacht blue. Love that
They've got Tiefblau, Nachtblau, Atlantic Blau. I mean, it goes on and on with Nomos. And by the way, every Blau they make is gorgeous. So JBO Surf, thanks for the shot. Thumper JDM. CFB has the peripheral rotor made of tungsten. That's true. Karl F. Bucherer, they were one of the few brands crazy enough to make a peripheral rotor. Among current brands, that puts them in good company with Vacheron, Audemars Piguet, and Breguet. So CFB, their stock is rising this episode. Edward Ledden saying the Amvox 3 tourbillon is one of the coolest tourbillon ever made. I'm partial to the platinum in ceramic, but the rose gold in ceramic is richer. And also, right here, Joseph K saying, JBO Surf, check out some of the homage Roger Dubuis chronos from the late 90s.
They're beautiful.
Highly
Those are
recommended.
awesome. Especially when you get to see the complete sets on those. Like they're absolutely beautiful. And I think that watch actually, those homage chronos are going to be making, they already are starting to make a comeback.
They are.
But I think that you're really going to start seeing those watches pop up more because the values have gone up. So they're going to be coming out of the drawers, and you're going to start seeing more of them flow into the secondary market. And some of his dials, the black dial salmons, were absolutely beautiful. So, you know,
Chills.
we really appreciate you guys logging on tonight. That's all we have. You know, please, you know, after this, if you guys have time, go check out, you know, Tim's video with Roger Ruger. It's an amazing show. If you have some time, again, it's a 10-minute interview with Cuba Gooding Jr. You know, go ahead, listen to the interview, and you know, please let us know what you think. You know, we want to, you know, keep producing great content.
And everything we do comes full circle. Of course, Cuba Gooding Jr. Once played Carl Brashear on screen. Carl Brashear paid tribute by Oris. Oris on the stage tonight. Again, everything is circular on this channel. We're like great literature, this parallelism and parallel structure, and we bring it all around.
How'd you know that's why I chose that watch?
Clearly, I mean, again, it all comes full circle. We're of one mind here. Two heads, but one mind. Soon three. He's got a baby on the way. Our new co-host debuting soon. Until then, I'm Tim.
I'm Brian.
This is Watchbox, and thanks for logging on.
Thank you, guys.
Great show.